You are listening to Free to Flourish Radio, a podcast dedicated to living a seasonal, sustainable, intentional, and heart-led life. I'm Gemma Sands, and this is episode 54. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you're all having a beautiful week so far. It's a bit of a grey day here, and I'm all curled up. I've got a cup of tea ready to have this conversation with you. So, as many of you will know, my word for the year for 2018 was unfold. And my intention, when the word kind of found me, my intention for unfold was that it would support me to stop pushing so hard and to let things flow. In my business particularly, I was in a place where I was really striving to make things happen, but I was very closed off to, just the natural flow of things. And I knew I wanted to change that as we headed into 2018. And I felt like Unfold was going to be brilliant in, supporting me to do that. But it ended up teaching me so much more. And that's what I want to share with you today. So 2018 became the year when I finally came home to myself. And really, now that I look back, I realize, I think that that's the essence of Unfold. It's a remembering, a reconnection with ourselves. And I've shared a lot before in the past about how I overhauled my life back in 2011. So from the outside, my life looked great at that time. I was living in London. I was working in a corporate career. I'd done pretty well for myself there. Most of my evenings were spent drinking champagne at cocktail parties or attending launch events for the brands that I worked with. So it seemed quite, glamorous from the outside. And kind of in my head, it was a little bit Sex and the City like. But on the inside, it was a very different story. And despite having a big social circle, I was really, really deeply lonely. I was plagued by the sense that I didn't quite fit in with the life that I was living. And I was really exhausted from trying to continuously keep up that pretense. I carried a lot of guilt. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'd done all of the things that I was supposed to do. I'd gone to university. I'd got the corporate career. And yet I wasn't happy. So I felt very guilty for the way that I was feeling. I felt like I should just be grateful. Lots of my friends were trying to create this. And here I was, feeling really miserable. And I was so terrified that I was going to get found out that, looking back, I can see now what was a way to try and protect myself really just became me trying harder and harder to become who I thought I needed to be. And I can tell you, it's really difficult waking up and realizing that the life that you have built for yourself doesn't fit who you are. Maybe it never did. Maybe it just doesn't fit who you are anymore. And it's especially hard when the life that you've created is what you've kind of always been taught is the right path, When I was at school, I don't know if this was the same for you, but when I was at school, you did well in your exams, you went to university, you got a good job, you had a good career. And I was definitely taught that as a female, this was a new era for us. There was nothing that we couldn't do. We could have a career and be a mother. We could, it's basically live the life that. And I'd kind of gone and done a lot of those things. So I was very confused as to why I wasn't happy. And so in 2011, I decided quite dramatically to quit my life, essentially. And to use the cliche, I hate this, but I don't really know any other way to sort of say this as such. This is what it was. I decided I was going to try and find myself. And I can tell you, it's a lot less glamorous than the eat, pray, love way of doing it. Okay, there was no eating lots of pasta and having an incredible experience in Bali. It was moving back to Yorkshire and figuring out, doing a lot of soul searching. So I know that some of you listening to this are going to have had a similar experience, or perhaps you're in that place right now. And that's where I want to share a little bit about Unfold. That's where that comes in. You see, it's a funny thing that kind of happened, really, because as I turned my back on London and everything that was attached to it, and the life that I'd created there, I became quite obsessed with who I was going to become. So I started my business and I was really trying to carve out a brand for myself. And in the 6 years that followed, I jumped from one thing to another, trying to find what would work. I basically was watching what everyone else was doing, thinking that's what I should be doing too. And then I was trying to make my life look like theirs. I was trying to make my life look like their Instagram feed. Okay. And this is genuinely quite embarrassing to admit, but I even became a life coach because I was following some coaches at the time who, they shared pictures of their morning routines with their green juices and going to yoga class and meditating on the beach. And just when I looked at them, I wanted that too. And as it turned out, becoming a life coach was one of the best decisions I made. But the intention behind it was genuinely and really embarrassingly to be more like them and to be part of that circle. And that's where I got the process of finding myself so wrong. Okay, it's not about trying to become something. It's not about trying to construct a different version. It's not about creating a vision of who you want to be. It's a remembering, unfolding, unraveling, peeling back all of the layers that have built up and connecting with who we have always been. And there's I think it's a Danielle Laporte quote I love related to this. I think it's her. But there's a quote and it's basically, can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? And that's really what Unfold has become for me. That's what it taught me. It's about this remembering of who I am at my core, not who I became because I thought I should, and not who I was trying to become. So last year, Unfold really became the guide in finally peeling back those layers. I was called to let go of things that I was still carrying. There was a lot of releasing that was done last year. I was called to open up to my shadow self, and we all have one. It's the parts of us that we think we need to change rather than accept. And I really, did a lot of deep work with that and actually examine and admit what it was that I really wanted as well, what I really, truly, deeply valued, not what I thought I should. So I realized that all of this is quite deep, it's quite raw, but I wanted to share it because I think that so many of us on a path of personal development are actually not unfolding, we're constructing. We're creating, goals and visions. And don't get me wrong, I love a vision, but only if it's really aligned. We deeply, honestly asked ourselves if what we are creating feels aligned, we would find that maybe it doesn't. Maybe we're creating it because we've seen somebody else do it. Maybe we're creating it because, we think that's what we should do. And actually, when we stop and look at it, maybe we don't really have a clue about what is aligned for us. And I think the key is always to anchor into the intention. Always anchor into the why behind the things that you're choosing to give your energy over to or focus on. And to give you an example, I've tried so many times to create a consistent yoga practice. Partly as a way of connecting with myself more deeply, and partly because actually when I really deep down look at it, hand on heart, and get honest about it, I always thought it was part of the identity of, someone who works in the spiritual wellness, personal development kind of world. But it's never worked for me. It's never worked for me at all. And I've pushed and pushed, and it's never worked. Now, taking a walk in nature, I feel my most alive. I feel so deeply connected and rooted and calm and at peace. And I cultivate all of the feelings that I was looking for in yoga, but in a way that's aligned to who I am and to what's relevant to me. So, if any of this has resonated with you, the first thing to do is take a big, deep breath. Remind yourself it's okay. Remind yourself that you are okay and that it's okay to be unfolding. It's okay, it's safe to anchor deeper into who you are, not who you're trying to become. Journal. Get out your journal. I filled up more journals last year than I have even thought was possible. Journal, question your intentions, look at where you're focusing your energy and check in with yourself. Is it really aligned for you? And release anything that you need to. Okay, and it's not an easy process. It's not an easy process at all, but it is a necessary process. And I think, I'm so interested in this concept now of remembering who we are, of waking up to who we've always been. And I think it's a collective thing, especially as women. I think collectively, we are waking up and we are rising up in remembering who we are. And I found essential oils to be a beautiful tool with unfolding as well. You know that I love my oils, and aroma is super powerful in accessing emotions. So let me think. Black pepper is a great one. It's the oil of unmasking on an emotional level. So that's a great one to support you in unfolding. Also bergamot, which essentially is the oil of self-acceptance. So that's a really good one for supporting us and being kind to ourselves. And I think we really have to cultivate that self-kindness as part of this process. What else do we have? Geranium's a good one as well. It's a real heart opener. And I'll tell you a little story about geranium. I hated it when I first smelt doTERRA's geranium oil, to the point where it literally made me gag. I thought I was going to be sick if I smelt it, and I was so disappointed. I thought this is going to be such a beautiful oil. It's a real heart-opening oil. And I literally just had to put it on my shelf and just leave it there. I couldn't, even trying to mix it with things, I could just still smell geranium. And then all of a sudden, throughout last year, I kept being drawn to really work with it as an oil. And now it's one of my favorites. I use it every single day. Because it's also great for hormone-related things. And I have no problem with it. And I think sometimes we just instinctively know what we need, And again, it's a remembering. It's going back to that power of nature. So anyway, you could diffuse them. So black pepper, bergamot, geranium, they're all great oils. You could diffuse them. You could just inhale them from the bottle. Maybe create a daily ritual where you combine them with a carrier oil and use it as a body oil. Such a beautiful, supportive practice as you tap deeper into this work. And if you'd like any support through coaching, you can just reach out, and of course we can chat about that as well. I realize that this has been quite a deep episode. It's been quite a vulnerable episode for me to share. So I would love to hear some of your thoughts around this, whether you have experienced unfolding of any kind, whether perhaps you think maybe it's something that you need to dig deeper into. And let's just open up a conversation about it, because I think, true happiness really comes from alignment, and that really comes from coming home to ourselves. So I hope that you have a beautiful week. Can't wait to hear some of your thoughts about this, and I'll be back again with you next week. You have been listening to Free to Flourish Radio. For more episodes, don't forget to subscribe through SoundCloud, iTunes or YouTube. And to access full show notes, visit gemmasands.co.uk.